Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. If you're a regular listener, you noticed that the show dropped a little bit later today than normal. That's because Matt and I have been infirmed. For whatever reason, the plague is hitting Western North Carolina. You can probably hear both of us sound very stuffed up. Matt I think he was in a sweat lodge trying to get well with a shaman, because I've known Matt for a long time and I've never seen him just disappear for time. But I'm going to ask you the obvious question, Matt.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer, but how you doing, buddy?
Man, I have been to Hades town and back.
Hades. Ooh.
I was telling, we were talking about this pre-production, how I can't remember being sick for as long as I've been sick since I was a kid. I was a sickly kid, unfortunately.
Sickly. Frail.
Yeah, scrawny, lots of allergies, asthma, and just not a real strong immune system. So I got sick pretty frequently. What I'm dealing with here is in the month of December, I had a bad cold that lasted about a month. It just wouldn't go away. It's one of those annoying things. It's kind of like the rain, when it's just cold and drizzly. It's like either rain or just stop. Like, what is this? It just won't go away. That's what this cold was like, and I was well enough to operate, but I was operating and just not feeling well, and that's aggravating. So as that sort of started to heal up, I took a short trip with my wife to Mexico City. Wonderful trip. I stepped in the house. About 30 minutes later, thought, stomach's not feeling so great.
The curse of Teotihuacan?
And it was the worst night of my life. It was the worst. I've had food poisoning. I've had E. coli poisoning in the past. Whatever this was horrible. And it lasted 2 or 3 days. Really one, like a 12-hour period was the worst. And then I'm recovering. About 2 days after that, my daughter comes home with, surprise, the flu. And
Nice.
I then catch the flu, and I am on day 10 of the flu. Took Tamiflu, didn't seem to touch it, and I am mostly well, I would say. However, through and this is TMI, but, through the course of extreme vomiting and coughing for days, I have given myself a hernia. So now I get to go to the doctor tomorrow and find out whether or not this is going to require surgery or not. So,
oh, Lord.
That is, and not to mention I've probably weigh what I weighed as a junior in high school, which was basically 70 pounds. That's what I weighed in high school.
I wish I had that diet plan in my life, man. So the people that are out listening now there's that certain audience that's like our good friend Yvette, who's out there is like, oh no, Matt, I'm sorry you're not feeling well. The rest of the audience is like, hey, listen, man, I'm here to make some money.
That's
Show
right.
me the
I
money.
don't care.
So
Are you breathing? Then give me some
You're
information.
like, give me some information. I don't really care about you. We always say on this show, we are a show about reselling, but we are also a show about people.
Mm-hmm.
So we face all the things that you people out there face.
We are people. We get sick just like those ridiculous. I mean, I think they're for like teenagers primarily, but they're like, People Magazine, Us Weekly, those where they have the picture of some sort of famous actor or actress, and they're walking down the street and they're like, they sneeze too, like real people, like they ice cream. It's like, yeah, they're human beings. Guess what? We get sick. We're human beings.
Are
we're
you
working
equating
hard.
yourself to a Hollywood actor? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I guess that sounded arrogant. I'm just saying, guys, bear with us, be patient with us, because, listen, I can get knocked down just like the rest, if not more so. It's looking
I don't know if I've
lately.
ever known anybody that's gone down that hard for that long. We almost had to skip a week because, we usually try to get a couple shows in the books, but it's been that kind of season. I was laid up all day yesterday. I'm the opposite of my wife. My wife is, when she gets sick, it's like she immediately wants to be surrounded. She doesn't get sick very often, to be fair. My wife is tough as nails, but when she does, let me tell you, people, I got another kindergartner in my house. It's just like I gotta put warm water bottles and bring her hot tea, and it's
massaging the feet.
She loves to be cared for and tended to. I'm the exact opposite. I am one of 9 kids, big family. My mom would throw out 8 pieces of bread. So when we got sick, it was like, well, you're gonna have to figure this out. So I like to go into the cave. I like to just leave me alone. Let my body deal with
out
this.
bread. It makes me imagine your mother as sort of this bag lady sitting on a park bench, and she's just sort of tossing breadcrumbs, and the children are crawling up to eat them. Is that accurate?
You're not that far away from the truth of the Doble family, but no, it just when you're in a big family, you just got to figure it out.
Of course.
Because we have friends that have 7 kids, and it's just like, we have an only, so she thinks that the world, she is the sun, and all the world's just revolve around her, and so. Anyway, all right. Well, it is good to be back with everybody. We're not going to lie. We're not on our A game today. I'm on a solid C game right now. I don't know where Matt is.
Not even going to predict it.
He's an NA.
How do we get through it, or do we not? That's the biggest question.
Yeah. So if he passes out, I'm just going to fill the space with noise. I might do like a sound bath for you guys. If you all of a sudden hear a sound bath come on the show, you'll know that Matt has gone down. It's over.
Right.
I blame it on your El Luchador career. I believe that you didn't tell us the truth. I believe you went into there. You stole someone's career, and you had the curse of Teotihuacan put upon you because of it. But that's just
what it was. It was that
guessing.
It was it's my fault because my opponent offered me some street corn, and I just thought it was a kind gesture. I took it.
You did talk about
I didn't realize that it was laced, with something to make me sick.
Yeah.
Listen, you live, you learn.
Well, when you go to countries, I traveled quite a bit in South and Central America when I was a teacher because I could. I would always get, in the first week, I'd always get these terrible GI because you're just not used to it. They don't wash their food with the same water. The water's more polluted. Just whatever. We're delicate. Yeah. Americans are delicate. So regardless, Matt, it's good to be back with you.
I'm like a flower. You've got to take care of me.
Yeah, you are like a delicate flower. We're back. We're glad that you're back. I was looking at information on getting my lawn prepped for the spring, so I'm going to look at information on how to get Matt prepped for the spring. So today we're going to do, we usually talk about what Matt sold. I don't know if you even sold anything this week, honestly.
Man, I did. And, this is all about buying and selling, and I would say, generally speaking, I like my job. I think it's fascinating. I learn a lot of things. It keeps me busy. You get out of it what you put into it. So if you're going to take a couple days off a week, you're not going to earn as much. I mean, it's sort of common sense.
Right.
But I have to tell you that while I was sick with the flu, about the midway point, about 2 to 3 days in, about the worst point in the course of it for me, I had to get up. I'd been on my back for 2 days. I had to get up because I already had 40 orders that were past due.
Ooh.
Now, that's a lot. And I couldn't let them go any longer. I had to go down and I had to find, package, make labels, package 40 separate orders in the worst part of flu. And I have to tell you, this is the only time, this is the strongest that I've ever thought to myself, why am I doing this job? What am I doing? If I was sick with any other job, I would have just called in and nothing would be required of me. But when you work for yourself, sometimes you're up against a deadline and you have to get things done. And I had no choice because, folks, some of you out there might say, well, listen, if you're that sick, just it's okay. You're going to get back to it. It's yes and no, because the thing is, there are certain types of analytics and things that eBay's tracking on your store, like the speed at which you ship things, like whether or not you have disputes that don't get resolved between you and the buyer or you and the seller, and eBay has to step in. There are these different markers, and they have set themselves, they set this, there are this percentage where if you're above that or below it, depending on what it is, you're going to be in the good zone, meaning you're above standard or you're a top rated seller. But if you slip beyond that mark, whatever it is, then they will start to initiate putting restrictions on your account. And that can look like they will hold your funds for a longer period of time so you don't get paid out. It could look like they won't release.
Wait, can I pause you for 1 second on that?
Of course, yeah.
What do they tell you why? I mean, what is holding your funds? What I mean, why? How can they get away with that? It's your money. Why are they? Because
in their, all powerful, all knowing self, it's their policies, it's their platform. They'll set up however they want, and their justification for this is that if they see that a seller is not fulfilling their obligations in a timely manner or keeping a certain percentage, rate of doing whatever the thing is, then they feel like that puts their buying community at risk to either be defrauded or things are just not operating as efficiently as they expect them to be. And they will punish you if you do not maintain the standards that they set forth for you. So, and you can see that at any given time. You can look and see both where you rate today and where you will rate the next time that they go through and check your store, which is once a month. And so it'll say you're above standard or you're a top-rated seller. And then it'll say next month you're either the same or above or below that. Now, if you get to a point where you say didn't fulfill your items in a timely enough manner, then they're going to send you a message and say, hey, you had a high, rate of like past due shipping, or you had a higher than average rate of returns or items not being described according to your buyers. So you need to keep an eye on that. They will enact any kind of restriction that they want. I have had that happen to me before, and it's not fun. They can hold on to your money. Like if you run an auction, let's say it's a 7-day auction. 7 days is going to go before that item sells. When you have an auction, the buyer is not required to pay immediately. They can have up to 3 days to pay. Let's say they wait to the 3rd day. So now you're 10 days out from initiating an auction to when it sells and it is paid for. If you have a restriction, they might say you're not going to have funds available within 3 days of confirmation of delivery. So it's been 10 days. I ship out this item, Ground Advantage. It's going to take 3 to 4 days to get there. Now we're looking at 16 to 17 days. Okay, it's arrived at day 17. And then they're going to wait another 3 days. We're looking at 20 days before the funds are now available to you. That's 3/4 of a month before you get paid.
And is it 30 days after that the money, like, because they can return it? So when does the 30 days start? When they receive it?
The 30 days, I think that the 30 days begins on the day of receipt of the item. Now, I may be wrong on that. It may be the date of the sale, but I think it's the date that they receive the item. They have 30 days to return it to you if they want to. So, yes, you can get paid at 20 days, but then, it's not really your money to use because you don't know if they're going to return it to you or not. So the point is, I got up when I was sick as a dog, to do this because if I didn't get these in and this somehow dings my store, this can cause problems for me and my store globally, meaning for as long as they want to hold that restriction, literally anything I sell to any person, they can hold on to my money for as long as they want. And you know what they're doing with that money? They're making money on it, right? They're not giving it to me. They're finding some other way to make money. And it is their prerogative to do that because when you create a store or you choose to sell on their platform, you're signing a large, long document agreeing to adherence to their policies, which the policies that they've created and any policy that they decide to change between now and forever, you have to follow those. You have no recourse. So if they put a restriction and you don't like it, you can call them and talk to them and try to work it out. Good luck to you as to whether or not, they're going to do something to help you or not. But that was a long rabbit hole. The point is, I needed to do this because I don't want to have my account, one of my accounts, restricted. By the way, this is why I have more than one account. If tomorrow they put a restriction on one account, guess what? I'm not putting anything on that account to sell anymore. I'm going to start listing on another account.
So do you just kill that account altogether?
I don't kill it because I have thousands of items on all of my eBay stores.
I gotcha.
I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. Now anything that sells on that store, I have to wait to get paid for. And I do this full time. I rely upon regular intervals of payouts for the things that I sell in order to pay my bills. Now, if I only have one eBay store and they put a restriction on it, I'm in trouble. That is a major problem. And I have encountered that before. That is why I have at least 3 eBay stores active at all times with enough inventory on them to where I can pivot and wait out the other situation to resolve so that I can, and then anything new that I'm putting into those stores. That's how
that seems like
hedge.
An obvious advantage, a reason why you would have 3 stores. But is there an advantage or disadvantage? I know what the advantage is to the extra stores. Is there a disadvantage to having the extra stores?
Yes, in the sense that if you want to, say, focus on a particular category of items, sure, because if you have a person who finds an item or items, they get a good price, they decide they want to follow that store and they want to buy items and be alerted when you put new things out. Oops, now my store has a restriction and for the next 30 days, I'm not listing anything on that store anymore. So that person that's following that store is not following the store, my other store that I'm now actively using, right? I try to keep them all active, but at any given time, I'm more busy on one than another just because I'm one person.
How often does that happen where you get a restriction on a store?
It does not happen often, but you can follow everything to the letter, all their policies, and still something can happen. I'll go to list something for $10 and they'll flag it and they'll say, "Hey, this is ivory. You're trying to sell ivory. It's illegal to sell ivory and it's against our policies. And this is going to threaten eBay for you to be putting illegal things on your store. So we're going to lock your store for 30 days. And I'm going to be like, this isn't ivory. What are you talking about? And then they go like, well, we just got to be careful. We just got to be safe. You know what I mean? Like they can do anything like that. They don't have to have a good reason. They don't have to admit that they made a mistake. They don't have to fix it. They don't have to do anything. That's eBay.
Right. Well, because they're the platform.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in their mind, they're like, well, if you don't want to, I mean, obviously there's a tipping point for them because it's economies of scale, right? If they made enough people mad who left, or another platform came up that was better, then they might change that. But at this point, anybody that's doing what you're doing is probably selling on eBay, so they just have such a massive, corner of the market that.
Correct.
That for them, it's like, well, whatever, then don't sell here.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't care if I leave. I, gross 6 figures on eBay. They make lots of money from me, both in monthly subscription costs and in little nickel and dime stuff and the sale fees. And they still don't care. They don't care if they lose me.
Well, I think ultimately we've talked about this a lot on the show. I didn't know any of this stuff, but I'm starting to pick this up. Their real concern is the buyer, not the seller. Right. The buyer is the one that they don't, because if the buyers leave, then it doesn't matter how many sellers they have. So they go out of their way. I've experienced this firsthand of protecting the buyer to the point where it's almost absurd. You're like, wait, what? Like if you were a person that knew how to game the eBay system as a buyer, and I know there are people out here that do it, it'd be pretty easy to scam the system.
Like I think I talked about this last time, but here's a quick example. Recently, I sold $1,500 worth of sterling silver jewelry. I sent it to the person. They responded, "Hey, this is an empty box." And I said, "No, it's not an empty box. It was $1,500 of sterling silver jewelry that I sent you." And they contacted eBay and said, "Hey, he sent me an empty box. See, here's a picture of an empty box." And they said, "Oh, well, we should return your money." And so they got my jewelry and they got my money. And I appealed it. Mm-hmm. I appealed it. And they said, well, the buyer signed an affidavit saying that they were being honest, that it was an empty box. End of story.
They stole that.
They stole $1,500 of sterling silver from me. And once all of it was done, it was about a 30-day process of an appeal and everything. They still sided with the buyer, and then the buyer got on and left me a negative review saying that I sent them an empty box. So I have a negative review on my account.
You're kidding me.
I am not kidding you.
That is horrible.
Yep.
Can you give me the name and I'm going to dox that person?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I have the person's name and address, right? I could go file a police report, I suppose. I don't know is it worth that time? What does it cost? Do I have to get an attorney? Do I take them to small claims court? Like, what is, you know what I mean?
Did you take a picture of the box, and when you go to ship it,
well,
is
the
there
only
any
thing
way to
that
prove it?
it's that person's word against mine. And so the point I'm making your point, which is they support the buyers. They don't support the seller. I have a picture of the jewelry, the pictures that I listed in the listing to attract the buyer in the first place. I had them physically in my hand. I weighed it. I shipped it. They got it. They pulled out the jewelry, and they said, "There's nothing here." Now, is there a world in which it's conceivable that someone stole it in transit? Is it conceivable that the U.S. Postal Service dropped it and it broke a hole in it and it fell out? Somebody else got it? I guess anything's possible, but all I know for certain is that I did send them $1,500 of silver, and eBay did not side with me. They did not protect me as a seller. They did not refund my money. They gave the money back to the buyer. They got the item.
Wow.
Or didn't. I don't know for certain. And that's it.
What a
So
scam.
it was 100% a scam, and eBay did not at all support me.
That's amazing to me because it seems like, I mean, I get it. I mean, people scam. Trust me, I'm doing another show of scams, digital scams, and they're everywhere. It's incredible how many bad criminal people are out there, and the anonymity of digital exchanges makes it even worse. But so you know who this person is, you know where they live, and yet they still are so brazen that they would do this because they're like, well, they can't prove it. Man,
I mean, it's my word against theirs, and eBay as the mediator. How do they know either? I mean, just giving them the benefit of the doubt for a moment. They don't know if I'm telling the truth or if they're telling the truth. Now, they should look and see that I've been selling on their platform for over 20, like nearly 25 years, and that they make hordes of money from me, and I gross 6 figures on their platform every year, and I continue to use it. You would think that would mean something to them, but apparently not.
Well, wait a second. I mean, it seems like, gosh, this is so frustrating to me. I just think about it. I'm like, one, because you're my friend, and I just don't like dishonest people, but it seems like you could have some sort of a certified thing on eBay where it says, hey, Matt is a certified seller. We know he's not going to steal from you, right? There's too many layers to, Matt wouldn't.
Yeah.
Does eBay just say, we don't need to do that? We don't care? Like, this person's probably done it somewhere else, right?
They don't care. I mean, they don't care enough to put any sort of measure like that in there. I mean, it's on me as the seller to insure it if I want to insure it, to make sure that it requires signature if I want that, both of which I did. So, I can chase down the insurance claim. I can just claim it as a loss on taxes. This was a loss, and it's exactly what it was. Much like I'm going to have to claim all the inventory I lost when Hurricane Helene washed away a building that had a lot of my inventory in it,
right.
Crazy natural disasters. I mean, there's not a whole lot left for me to do other than that. At the end of the day, any job you have for yourself, there are risks and there are potential losses or realized losses, and that's what I have to do. It leaves a really bad taste in my mouth because, listen, I want everyone to understand, I use eBay not because I love eBay. I use eBay because it is the largest platform that attracts the most buyers, and I stand to make the most money there. But do not believe for 1 second that I trust eBay. I do not trust eBay. Do not trust eBay at all.
To do the right thing.
To do the right thing. To support me. They're not going to. Most of the time, they're not, if I'm the seller. If I'm the buyer, they're more likely to support me. But you know what? I'm not out to scam anybody as a buyer, so I'm never going to get the advantage of that unless a seller tries to scam me, and that almost never happens. Almost has never happened.
It seems like, and I'm way deep in the weeds on these scams, but it truly does feel like there has to be some fundamental shift in the way we do business online, and with the way that people can scam and are willing to scam, that there has to be some easier way to deal with this, because all that's going to do is discourage people from wanting to sell on, like I would never sell on eBay because I had a terrible experience. At some point, businesses don't last forever. Somebody else will come along and do a better job. You just kind of wonder, is there some way to, like, the verification part of this whole thing?
The only thing I can do, unfortunately, is just to block them. So there is a way you can block buyers. So if I have an interaction like this, then I will go in and block that buyer on all of my stores. Like, it stinks. It was a bad situation, but guess what? Never going to do it to me again. You're not buying from me again, ever. You're not allowed to. I've blocked you, and it's rough. There's scammers, and then there are people who are just really, really unkind. I had a person this week while I made a mistake. I made a mistake, and I sent a person bought a couple of like antique, like they were like pinbacks essentially, but they were like metals, I guess, like brass. I sold 2 to one person, and one of them that I sent was very, very similar, but it was wrong. So as I was going through in my sort of, sickly stupor, I pulled one that was very close and similar, but it wasn't the exact one. One was correct, one wasn't. I sent it off. I get a response, or I get an email from the person saying that, hey, one of these is incorrect. I would like it back. And I responded within 24 hours, but in less than 24 hours, I got 2 more very hateful messages being like, why have you not responded? Like, I'm going to have to take this up with eBay. I'm sick. I'm in bed. I get on my phone. I go, listen, I'm sorry that it's taken me less than a day to respond to you, but I'm sick. I'm going to do my best to fix this. Very sorry. They get on and their response is, well, I'm glad that you have the flu, because otherwise you are just a super dishonest person. I expect to get my item as soon as possible. That's their response. And I get on, and they signed it as like, retired military, blah, blah, blah. I get on and I say, wow, you really? I admitted that I made a mistake. I'm a human being. I've been very sick. I'm going to take care of this the best of my ability. But I would have liked to think that someone in your position, trained military, would understand that treating a human being better than that is more important than a little piece of copper, And I'm going to be very honest with you. It made me angry. I'd been sick for like 2 months. And by the way, this was like a less than a $10 item. And I got on, I said, you know what? Why don't you go ahead and initiate a return? And when I get them, I'm going to give you a full refund. And I'm going to be happy to sell this to somebody else who has a little bit of integrity. That's what I did. So I chose not to fix it. I said, I have a 30-day return policy. Return the items. One of them's correct and one of them's not, but return them. I'll refund you. And I'm going to block you. I didn't say this, but I'm going to block him, and I'm going to sell it to somebody else. Because you know what? I don't like that. I don't like you getting on and being aggressive, verbally aggressive like that towards me. Because, again, I'm a seller. I know I'm using someone else's platform, but it's my item. I can choose who I want to sell it to. And guess what? You're not that guy.
Did he return it?
He has initiated a return. I haven't received it yet. He ain't getting his money back until I get it.
Right.
But I have blocked him. So sometimes that's the way it goes. Anyone who's worked in retail, and this is sort of pseudo retail. I'm not actually having to stand and deal with rude people, but anyone who's worked in the retail world in person knows people can be very, very hateful and nasty. And you know what, Brandon? Most of the time, I can give people the benefit of the doubt. Even when people were rude, I can brush it off. I don't know what's going on in their life. Maybe they're having a bad day. Stuff happened to them. It's not fair that they're taking it out on me, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But when I'm sick and I'm down and out and someone treats me that way, you know what I mean? There's a limit. Yeah. Everyone has a limit, and that was my limit that day.
My limit would have been a long time ago, but you and I are very different people. The part of this whole thing is, and this is more of an editorial comment for people listening, the anonymity of the internet is a big part of this problem.
For sure.
This person might be a perfectly normal person, and I always say that when you go to a retail store, you have to actually physically face the person. So if you're going to be rude to them, they're going to see you. They're going to know who you are. Mm-hmm. As opposed to this, it just lends itself to people doing mean things. So let's hope that Rusty doesn't take too much of this, and that this is sort of an anomaly.
If you're out there listening, retired military colonel, you need to change your salutation to retired military active a-hole, because
meanie
that's
active
right.
meanie pants.
That's right. Because come on, why treat people? You're asking for me to help you. You're simultaneously asking me for me to help you, and then you're being hateful. I just don't get it.
I think that part of that probably, I mean, I don't know this, but I do know that when you have things that you've bought online, you don't see the person. So you're like, are they he's like, is this guy scamming me?
Sure.
And instead of thinking, let's look through the process, and I think that eBay, because they protect the buyer so much, they also help create this problem where the buyer could just be a complete meanie pants, and there's no recourse.
I think what we're also seeing is just the sad reality of our culture now, which is we go from 0 to outraged in one move. There is no, what is this on a scale of 1 to 10? It's a 1, and then it's a 10. And you think the worst. I'm being scammed, I'm outraged, and now I need to get out and be nasty. Folks, that doesn't help your cause. You need to give people the benefit of the doubt. You need to work with people. Be patient, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and there's another mantra of this show, which is obviously we want to help people sell, and we want to talk about all this stuff. But you call people cousins for a reason. We really are all in this together.
We are.
So there are going to be times where you're going to have disagreements with people, but we could disagree cordially. We can say, hey, I'm not sure about if the person's a bad person. You could deal with that in the way you want to deal with that. But if the person just made a mistake, let's all just be cousins here and say, I'm not going to do that to my cousin.
Yeah.
So if my cousin made a mistake, I'd be like, oh, it's okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, wow.
That was a long one. I mean, I do have some things I would love to
I want to talk about what you sold, but
what we sold. Yeah.
I thought this was going to be one of these shows.
Well,
this
has been a downer so far. This has been a downer. This is my fault again. I'm sort of operating off of in recovery mode, but I've been dealing with it. I've been dealing with it, and there are better days ahead.
Well, let me ask you a question, because we are about to teach people. Like in this case, with that silver, is there anything you would have done differently, or is this just part of the deal?
I mean, I would have insured it for $1,500, I suppose, and paid the $30 or $40 or $50, whatever it was. You can insure, if you're shipping through the U.S. Postal Service, you can insure things up to $4,000. But if you're going to sell something for $10,000 and you want to ship it through U.S. Postal Service, you're in trouble, because if something happens and you have to, seek that insurance, you can't go above $4,000. So I actually don't exactly know how people insure things that are that much more expensive. Luckily, I'm not, I push that sometimes with vintage instruments. I may sell something that's $5,000 or $6,000, but I'm requiring things like signature and delivery. They need to sign for it, or I'm going to physically take it there myself, or they have to come and collect it. But I guess I could have done that.
Why didn't you insure it then?
Because I sell things worth $1,000 or more dozens and dozens and dozens of times a year. And if I paid $50 every single time I did that, I'm going to have the need to access that claim once a year. So am I going to spend $2,000 a year that I'm not going to get back? Because even if I go and do pursue that insurance claim, are they actually going to fulfill it and give me 100% of that money? It's insurance. No, they're not. It's in the name. It's insurance. Insurance never pays out fully what they're supposed to. So what I do is I chalk that up as a risk. One time a year, I'm going to get taken. And that's a bummer, and I'm going to count that as a loss, and I'm going to put that on. Some years, I won't have one. And guess what? I saved myself $2,000 because I didn't insure everything all the way up to however much it was every time. Now, if it's an instrument, if it's $4,000 or $5,000 instrument, I will pay that money. Usually, I will build that into the cost of the item itself. I'll say, listen, I know that shipping being $80 is a lot, but $30 is the box and the material, and $50 is the insurance, and you're paying that. Because I don't get that. I'm not going to just lose that money. If you want this item, I'm going to insure it, and that cost is being pushed onto you. I'll do that sometimes, and sometimes I won't. I don't know. I wouldn't have done anything differently. I would have hoped that a person wasn't trying to defraud me.
Which is probably also part of the reason why you like to work with the same people when it comes to selling gold and silver.
100%. Repeat buyers are great. If I've had a good experience with you, I want to sell to you. I want you to keep, I don't want your money once. I want it every time that you find something that you think is worth it at the right price. Come to me.
Yeah, we talked about that with that estate sale guy. It's like when you can develop, that's a verification. You know the person's,
Exactly.
you've worked with them, you can trust them, and it's a good thing. All right,
Yeah.
So in our last few minutes, we were going to talk about something completely different, but you took me down the best rabbit hole we've ever been down. That was amazing. People be nice to Cousin Rusty. He seems to having a rough time. But what did you sell this week?
Don't tell me I'm glad you had the flu, Rusty, because I'm not going to continue that conversation. Be nice.
I'm glad you had the flu
nice.
because it proves to me you got
that guy got back
you.
on. He got back on again and responded. And he was like, "No, you don't understand. The alternative was you were a terribly dishonest person. Go back and see the message." And I'm thinking, are you trying to justify that you told me you're glad I got this is ridiculous. Get out of here. Get out of here, man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you did what you did because that colonel needs to not get that piece. And, it's like, I hope the colonel is listening to this show.
Yeah.
He's like, what? I didn't realize that was you, Cousin Rusty. I'm so sorry.
Had I known you were listening and or watching, I would have worn a little badge here just so you could see it, what you're not getting from me, Colonel.
Wow, Cousin Rusty's.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's taking it too far. Let's talk about some cool things that I sold and I'm excited about.
Yeah.
So one item is this tiny little, it's a women's pocket watch because I know you love pocket watches so much.
I do.
This is this would be considered a 0 size, but it's octagonal in its case. And the thing that's unique about this, even though there is no brand or maker on the dial, is that the case is 14 karat solid gold. So it's small.
Nice.
And it doesn't work. You can wind it, and it's just not, I don't know if the balance staff is off or what's going on with it, but it's even in not currently working condition. It's still sold for $280.
Wow.
And I bought this for $20 in a little lot of other mixed pieces of jewelry and vintage watch parts and things. They saw that it was a little watch. They didn't care it was old. They didn't look on the inside to see that it was made out of gold. So I happened to win in that situation because it ended up being much more valuable than they realized.
Winner, chicken dinner.
And that can happen, folks, as it starts getting, as it gets warm. We're in Western North Carolina. It's early February, and I'm telling you, it's been like 67 degrees.
Beautiful.
I don't even understand what's happening around me, but the point is when there are yard sales and estate sales and stuff, this kind of thing can happen. You can find valuable stuff like that in little mixed lots. Another thing I sold, and this sold for $14, it's just a little, and I have the case, but it's a roll of film. It's Kodak Gold Super 200 3mm film. There are only 12 exposures on it, but it's not been used. And so, it's older. I have no idea exactly how old, but it's unused, and it's been in a light, tight little plastic container. So a lot of people might think, like, why is people... Well, people are still buying 35mm, taking photographs and developing them. It's not as common as it once was because we have digital cameras, and everyone has a really high quality camera on their phone now. But people who like photography and use that, they still buy these, and they don't mind going to a platform like eBay and buying them from someone like me. I came across a little baggie of this stuff at a thrift store for $1, and there were like 5 or 6 in here. And guess what? I split that up, and I sell them all individually. And $14 a piece, by the time I sell 5 of those, that's a great $1 investment.
Yeah.
That's like a 30, 40x, 50x on my investment. So that's pretty nice. So if you happen to have film laying around, maybe grandpa's old camera in the closet, you've got a bag with the camera, and but there's some film in there still that's not been used, you can sell that film. It's still good. People will use it.
Yeah.
Another lot I sold for $24.99 was this lot of 5 vintage ink pens and 1 little refill of ink that would go in a pen as well. And these are various kinds. None of these are really even all that valuable. These are just probably from like the 1970s, 1980s. I'm seeing Simplex Manufacturing Company. Here's a State Farm insurance pen. Here's one, a fabric company. So a lot of these
they're
have
like giveaway
advertising.
pins.
Yeah, they're like advertising pins, right? You go into a store and here's their pins with their company on them. And then this little refill. And I find these all the time, little bags with vintage pencils, like twisting mechanical pencils that have the lead in them, or antique ink pens, or best case scenario are old fountain pens that still have the nibs. Those nibs will be made of 14 karat gold sometimes. And so there's gold content in them. Sometimes you'll come across really good quality ink pens or fountain pens of nice brands like Schaefer or Mont Blanc. Like, they're not looking at this. They just see a bag of pens and they're like, oh, 50 cents. You know what I mean? At a thrift store, happens all the time. You can pluck one thing out of there and make way more than you spent on all of it, or you can sell it as a whole lot. But I think they're interesting, and shoot, I can pull a couple out and just use them at my desk, and then sell the rest and make money. And I've won twice.
Nice.
That's a good one. Here's another cool little old bottle. Old bottles sell really well, and especially I've got a few that I've listed lately that were like little inkwell bottles, some that were apothecary type bottles, or from old doctors' bottles that they would have medicines and things. This one is cool because it has a little lid. It's a brown, like an amber glass, and it says Hydrarg Salicyl Poison on the label. So it says poison. That's kind of cool. Bottles, generally speaking, older bottles that still have their labels intact can go for more money because people like those. Sometimes they're just little things they put up on a bookshelf. They think it's interesting. Or I don't know what else. Maybe they craft with them, or they do different things. Maybe they clean them out and then they use them for something. They can repurpose that in the kitchen or something like that. And, it'd be kind of funny to have a little bottle with salt or something on the table, but it has a label that says poison on it. I'm not suggesting you do that, but who knows? There's all kinds of things.
It reminds me of It's a Wonderful Life, where he discovers that Mr. Gower's. But Mr. Gower, there's something. You put something bad in that bottle, Mr. Gower.
Exactly. He wasn't paying attention. Yeah. Last thing I have here, which is cool. Oh, by the way, this bottle I just showed sold for $24. And it's not a big bottle. It's just a small bottle, but it's vintage. The last thing I'll show is this. These are bottles as well, but these are miniature beer bottles. Right here we have one with label that says Gunther's Beer. And when I say miniature, I mean these are probably 4 inches tall. And they have the little caps on them. But what these were actually for were salt and pepper shakers. So the top of them have little holes. And they're made to look like lager beer bottles with the label and everything. Everything about them looks like a regular beer bottle, the amber glass, with the exception that the top has those little the holes in them, so you could use them for salt or pepper. And there's a bunch of people out there who collect salt and pepper shakers. That's been a collectible thing for a long time. So there was 2 sets. We got this one of Gunther's, and then this one of Blatz, Blatz, Blatz beer, and again, Milwaukee's finest, it says. And again,
nice.
The top is salt and pepper shakers. And so this lot also sold for $24. These happen to be ones that I sold for someone else, so I didn't buy them. But things like this, if I had seen this for a couple bucks, $2-3, I would have bought it. That's a good price. I'll turn $3 into $25. That's fine. It's small. Again, it fits in that mold of what I like to sell. Things that fit within a 6x6x6 box, or little bubble mailers, cardboard mailers. And you'll notice that everything I discussed today fits that bill. They're all small items. I can store a lot of them, cheap and easy to ship. And all of these things are things you could find in your community. It's nothing. None of it was extravagant or super rare. It's just out there.
Yeah. Well, also you have the skill and the knowledge to be able to recognize what is and what is not worth picking up for $1. Sure. So
but
you've
probably got a computer in your pocket. Pick it up, use Google Lens, get on eBay, search it, see what's sold. If they're selling, that's all the proof you need. If people are buying them and they're buying them at a price that is enough for you to make money, it's not really much more complicated than that.
Yeah. Well, this has been far better than I would have thought for 2 sick guys to put together, after a week of being laid up on your back. I am hoping you're going to be feeling continually better.
Yeah.
I know that the cousins that are out there are sending you good vibes and wishes. We will be back with a brand new show next week, hopefully on time. But let us know. Reach out. If you know where the mean colonel is or the evil silver buyer is, let us know. Go to their house, knock on their door, and say, you're a meanie pants.
Yeah.
Anyway, any last words,
be
Matt?
kind. Just be friendly, be kind, be patient with people. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes, and that's okay. But let's just treat each other with dignity to the best of our ability. In a world that's telling you to be outraged, just take a moment, pause, bring it down a couple of notches, and I think you're gonna be better off.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, have a great week. Talk soon.
Take care.